Hi, this is Lewis Harrison, and this is Ask Lewis. We do work on game theory, strategies, personal development, and self-awareness. And I got an email from someone asking me to speak about the role that emotions play in creating effective life strategies, and specifically in game theory and in my own work, Harrison's applied game theory. And I want to address that, and one of the reasons why I want to address that, and I'm going to repeat this again, in classical mathematical game theory, the assumption is that a competitor or adversary or some other player in your game is a rational agent, a rational thinker. But that's not really so. You see, in life, one doesn't need an all-defining word to recognize that every day human beings experience love and hate and an entire array of feelings, passions, and sensibilities that reflect or we classify as emotions. To prosper in life, you must have an effective strategy for expressing these feelings, as well as your passions and your sensibilities. Our ability to be in touch with and express our emotions has a large part to play in the types of choices we will make in the game of life. The exploration of what I call emotional games is important because in traditional mathematical game theory, a useful template for understanding an ever-complex, chaotic, and digitized world is logic. The rational mind and the scientific method are all important to what defines what goes into the playbook in our lives. One soon learns that applying game theory in this way of thinking in ordinary life is not particularly effective. It may work in mathematics, it may work in scientific research, but when you're dealing with other human beings, even in strategic relationships, what you're dealing with is emotion. As a rationale for game theory, irrationality is actually the rule. Yes, as rational as most of us like to appear, current research indicates that humans are motivated to subconsciously initiate, continue, or terminate body movements, behavior, thought patterns, and even internal chemistry in ways that may be contrary to what seems rational or logical. You see, gamer thinking is concerned with how people respond to one stimulus or another and how we define these responses. What is hard to measure is the hundreds of factors that influence these responses. A traditional mathematical approach to game theory would require that one measure the influence of culture, age, gender, upbringing, early and later life traumas, religious beliefs, national origin, the physical environment, and even the time frame in which a feeling is expressed. For instance, we might define the same emotion differently if it happens for just a few seconds. For example, when you experience confusion, while others can last for years, which includes confusion and even terror. And there are general and multifaceted ways in which we create and respond to the world. We process important information and respond through conscious and unconscious actions, feelings, body reactions, and behaviors. Some individuals may have personalities that are reflective of certain character traits. For example, a loving person will feel and express love more quickly or easily than he or she might express fear or sadness. Unfortunately, classical game theory does not address this. So it all presents a dilemma. If we cannot define or create a description for the word emotion, how can one create a life game, a system for integrating the influence of emotions into the game of life? Well, my response to this challenge is to create my own game rulebook concerning emotions. And you may find this useful in your own life if you are a game theorist or a gamer, and you also tend to be someone who has a short fuse or driven by emotions. I have isolated 4 emotional states that I call the core emotions. These are love, sadness, fear, and joy. The level of success that I have in my self-created life game is greatly dependent on how I respond to one or another of these core feelings. I was going to add sympathy, by the way, and hate to these emotions, but through the process of self-assessment and talking to some of my peers, I came to the conclusion that sympathy really is an expression of sadness, and hate is actually an expression of fear. Oh, and love is an expression of joy. So, as I explored the concept of emotional games, I saw that in sports, war, and politics, it is common for a competitor to win a game by forcing an opponent to act emotionally at a time when doing so is against the latter's best interest. Obviously, you can't go through life being mad or sad and expect to be effective. In the game of life, it is important to develop strategies for addressing your emotional needs. And these needs cannot be ignored without consequences. In creating a life game, the question must arise. If emotional responses defy logic a good part of the time, what is the function or benefit of emotions in our lives? No one can know the answer to this question for sure, but there is a good chance that emotions have evolved for a particular function, possibly our very survival. A question I find of great interest is, can an emotion even be said to exist if there's no behavior that can be connected to that emotion? Is it possible that a particular behavior and even a particular physical response to some external environment or some behavior from someone else is a determining factor for the very existence of our emotion or any emotion? If this is so, we have an important tool to guide our emotions in creating boundaries for how we express them. In such a case, goal-directed behavior would be considered an essential to healthy emotional expression. And when I use the term goal-directed behavior, in game theory, I call this an end game. What is the end result I'm looking to get? And how does having an emotion or not expressing a certain emotion help me to get that end game? This way of thinking is invaluable in game theory, since every game needs to have a goal or an end game. They call this very often a utility in traditional game theory. As I have created the template for HAGT, H-A-G-T, which refers to either holistic applied game theory or Harrison's applied game theory, they're really the same. I have seen that the limitations in defining and understanding emotions and emotionally based behavior in myself and others can present a great obstacle to creating effective strategies. Motivated by this awareness, I sought out and spoke with researchers about what was known about the emotions within the natural science community. I was told that the closest I might come to what I was seeking was to investigate a relatively new discipline known as affective neuroscience. Affective, A-F-F-E-C-T-I-V-E, affective neuroscience. This discipline integrates elements of neurology, sociology, and psychological research and ties it into mood, emotion, and personality. This then led me to an academic discipline that explores the influence of biology on the emotions, known as biological psychology. Biological psychology, which is also known as biopsychology or psychobiology or physiological biology or behavioral neuroscience, and even as neuropsychology, is the scientific study of the biological basis of behavior and mental states. However one may choose to define an emotion, many effective neuroscientists and biological psychologists believe that emotions are related to those areas of the brain, known as the limbic system, that control our motives, attention, motivation, and behavior. It is these same areas of the brain that define and prioritize the importance of events and circumstances taking place around us. For me, this was an epiphany, since it is the defining and prioritizing of important events and circumstances that take place around me, and it has been a core element of my approach to applying game theory. So, for those seeking to create games of power and influence, new discoveries about the brain, the emotions, and the nervous system are being brought forth daily, and it is essential that such individuals remain up to date on new breakthroughs in these areas. One of the most fascinating areas that I explored in my own research was the distinction between passion and obsession. I saw that a passionate person could create a life game motivated and inspired by positive goal-directed actions, whereas individuals with addictive personalities would likely increase negative and destructive addictive patterns and behaviors when encountering the object of their addiction, whether that be sexual addiction, alcohol, gambling, codependent relationships, etc. So keeping this in mind, as you create your new life game or tweak the one you're already living, please focus on that which you are passionate about. And remember that whatever emotions actually are, they are valuable to isolating and understanding what parts of our external environment are essential and have real importance. They're important to surviving in dangerous situations by causing us to be productively fearful. They are essential to helping us to understand that there is a consequence to our actions and helping us to define just what the consequence may be. And they give us a sense of time and space so that we may shift our behaviors for the purpose of achieving certain goals. These are key elements to gamer thinking and apply game theory. Remember, emotions also give us a sense of the value of delaying short-term gratification so that we may achieve these goals. They help us create an environment where introspection and contemplation can take place. And they help create environments where consciousness and subjective intuitive awareness can expand, especially concerning the behavior of others. If you'd like to learn more about game theory and apply game theory, I hope you will subscribe here at my channel, Ask Lewis Harrison. And of course, you can learn more going to asklewis.com, which is my website. And of course, Ask Lewis is also my page on Facebook. I hope that you will become a fan there. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope that you have a successful game theory day.